Buckingham Palace. It's Saturday. Hundreds of tourists have gathered at the back gate, phone cameras at the ready, and the crowd is buzzing with multilingual noise. Everyone is waiting. Someone wants to shoot a video with the royal guards. Someone wants to see the changing of the guard. It is an ordinary morning in the heart of London. No one suspects that today's scene will end differently than usual. Among the crowd is a man in his 40s, wearing a bright red sweatshirt with the provocative inscription, "Make Britain Fun Again." He looks like a typical tourist blogger, smartphone on a selfie stick, loud American accent, and a slanted cap. From the first seconds, his behavior is out of step with the general mood. He laughs louder than the others, deliberately comes closer, and picks on one of the guards. He comments mockingly, exclaiming, "Oh, look, another live mannequin. Maybe you'll show me that you're not a robot." The crowd laughs at first, then some people start to get nervous. The guardsman, young Sergeant Alex Bryant, stands motionless. He is 29. Impeccable uniform, cold gaze, as if carved from marble. He has served 3 tours in Iraq and 1 in Syria. But now he is not a fighter, he is a ceremonial symbol. His orders are simple: do not react. No matter how absurd the provocation. A man in a red hoodie comes dangerously close, almost touching Bryant's hat. The tourists hold their breath. The palace guards have already noticed how the situation is heating up, but they do not intervene yet. And at this very moment, when it seems that this impudent man is about to cross the line, he says one phrase that no random tourist should know: "Sergeant Bryant. What would your brother say if he saw you now?" The guardsman does not change his gaze. But everyone who knows his story knows that his brother was killed during a joint operation in Aleppo. The crowd does not know this. The guards don't know. But Sergeant Bryant understands one thing: this is not a random passerby. Someone is playing a very dangerous game. He is standing there, unmoved, but inside he is already engaged in a completely different struggle. Only later does it become clear that this tourist is not just a blogger. He is an officer of British military intelligence. And what happened that morning was a planned trap. London woke up to the hum of tourist buses, the smell of fresh pastries from street cafes, and the morning cold wind. A crowd was already gathering on the square in front of Buckingham Palace. Saturday always meant one thing: more tourists, more cameras, more noise. Sergeant Alex Bryant stood at his post, unfazed as ever. Dark eyes, square jaw, chin slightly raised. At first glance, he looks like a classic British guardsman in a bearskin hat, red uniform, and a completely calm expression. But inside, he is concentrating hard. 30 seconds of silence, 1 second to react. He knows the price of this balance. His body seems to be accustomed to many hours of immobility, but his mind is always on edge. He doesn't need to see every tourist to know who is standing outside the back gate. A few seconds of eye movement around the periphery, and he's already noticed a few strange people. An elderly man in a military jacket, a girl with a drone camera, a group of German students laughing at someone in the crowd. Today's crowd was not too different from the usual. At least, it seemed that way until an overly loud American accent began to break through the general noise. "Wow, look, another British Ken. A real live mannequin," a man in a bright red sweatshirt exclaimed, walking up to the fence. Bryant did not respond. Protocols are clear: complete indifference until the situation becomes physically dangerous. The man continued to joke, putting his phone on a selfie stick and taking pictures of himself and the guard. His voice cut through the space between the tourists. "Hey, buddy, I heard that they don't even allow you to take pictures." "What? They make you change the batteries after every shift." People laughed, though some of them started to feel uncomfortable. This was already crossing the line of ordinary tourist humor. Bryant remained calm, but carefully recorded everything: hand movements, distance to the fence, the position of the offender's feet. Nearby, on the archway side, 2 security guards had already exchanged glances. They also felt that the Joker was not quite typical today. And then something happened that made Bryant more wary. The man took a step closer, breaking the distance, and, as if by accident, threw it. "Sergeant Bryant, would your brother be proud to see this show?" No one was supposed to know this. The crowd did not yet realize what had happened. But something clicked in Bryant's mind. Who is this man? How does he know his name? How does he know about his brother? He remained outwardly calm, but a wave of anxiety began to rise inside him. Something was clearly wrong, and it was only going to get worse. Bryant saw dozens of provocateurs. Some were grimacing, laughing, waving their hands in front of their faces. Some tried to make him laugh or flinch. He was used to it. The restrained look, the calm breathing, everything was practiced to the point of automaticity. But now it was different. The man in the red hoodie continued to speak. His voice lowered a bit, became targeted, almost personal. Do you often think about your brother, Sergeant? Do you remember what he said to you before your last deployment? Bryant gritted his teeth inwardly. No civilian could know that. They talked about his brother's death only among his army brothers, and even there, briefly, without unnecessary emotion. He took a microscopic breath, almost imperceptibly to the others, and turned his gaze to the edge of the periphery, to the palace guards. One of the officers was already holding a walkie-talkie, reporting something quickly. It would seem that they would intervene in a moment. But the man was a few steps ahead. He spoke again, this time louder, so that everyone could hear. I'm just asking, how does it feel to stand here while the world is changing around you? And you're stuck like a museum piece? Are you ready to do this for the rest of your life? People in the crowd looked at each other. Some were laughing nervously. Someone pulled out a phone to shoot a video. Everyone felt that something was wrong, but they couldn't quite put their finger on it. Bryant stood still, but one signal pulsed in his head. This man knows too much. He analyzed it in a second. The stranger's accent was too correct, his movements too confident. He was acting like he was on stage. None of the drunken confusion typical of hooligans. His eyes are cold and calculated. And the worst part is that after mentioning his brother, he threw out a detail he couldn't possibly have known. You remember how your commander used to say, if you fall, you get up. If you keep quiet, you win? Or have you forgotten? This was already a signal to Bryant. Their unit heard this phrase only during closed briefings. No one from the outside could repeat it. Now everything pointed to one thing. This is not just a provocateur. This is someone who works for the army, perhaps even a senior officer. But why is he doing this here? Why so publicly? And the main question, is it worth following the protocol any further when all the internal alarms are screaming danger? Meanwhile, the man took another step closer, crossing the very line that should not be crossed. The distance between them was only a few steps. He looked Bryant straight in the eye and smiled. What, Sergeant? You think the rules will save you today? And then it was obvious. He was preparing an even stronger move. Guardsmen are trained not to think of the crowd as a threat. Tourists with phones, children with ice cream, couples with cameras, their behavior is predictable. But today, for the first time, Bryant felt that the crowd around him had become an invisible trap. The man in the red hoodie spoke loudly again, this time addressing not only Bryant, but the people around him. Do you know why these guys are standing like statues? Because they are not allowed to have an opinion. They're not allowed to even look up when someone threatens them. Tell me, would you like to be just a decoration? His voice cut through the air like a blade. People began to listen intently. Some of them sympathized with the guardsmen, others with the same strange excitement with which they watch videos of provocations on social media. Bryant saw out of the corner of his eye that several tourists were already holding their phones horizontally, filming the scene rather than themselves. A viral video that would go viral all over the world. He shrank inwardly. Every movement of this stranger was deliberate. The more people watching now, the less chance of a quick resolution of the situation. And then it got even worse. On the opposite side of the crowd, another figure separated from the fence. A young man in a gray jacket, wearing headphones. He leaned over to one of the guards and whispered something briefly. Bryant noticed the guard immediately focus, his gaze sliding toward the provocateur. This was no accident. Two people acting in sync in a crowd already aroused suspicion. At that moment, the provocateur with the red hoodie did something that violated all the unspoken rules. He raised his hand and slowly, defiantly, stretched it towards the guardsman. His fingers hovered a few centimeters from Bryant's belt. What if I try to take this beautiful toy away now? His voice became low, almost a whisper, but the crowd clearly felt the change. Everyone held their breath. According to the rules, it is forbidden to touch a guardsman or his weapon. But what if the tourist is deliberately trying to provoke a physical response? What if he is not a tourist, but a test, or worse, a real threat? Bryant could see the guard coming their way, but he knew that a few seconds of delay and the situation could get out of hand. And then the man spoke quietly, almost intimately. You know, Sergeant, this is not just a game. Real danger always approaches quietly. The only question is whether you know how to recognize it in time. For the first time in his years of service, Bryant had doubts. Should he follow protocol, or should he act? He knew one thing. He was not the only one making decisions now. The whole system was watching him, and every unnecessary movement or complete indifference could be costly. Seconds stretched out like a stretched string. The stranger's fingers hovered a few centimeters from Bryant's belt. The tourists were quiet, and there was a tension in the air that could almost be felt physically. The sergeant's mind raced with clear textbook phrases. Do not react. Do not provoke. The guards will intervene. But on the level of instinct, he already realized that something else was at stake. The guard was on his way. But the man in the red hoodie acted like a trained predator who sensed how little time was left. He leaned over to Bryant again, and this time he didn't speak loudly, not to the crowd. A true soldier knows when silence is weakness. The phrase hit right under the armor. And then he took the last step, his fingers almost touching the butt of the guardsman's rifle. Something clicked inside Bryant. This was not just a provocateur, not a blogger, not a psycho, and no longer a test. This was a real risk to everything he stands for. Not for himself. For the people behind him. For the principle. Suddenly, he moved. With a loud click, the rifle butt rose, a movement so clear that everyone around him flinched. Bryant took a step forward, the only one, breaking protocol. His voice was quiet, steady, but it cut through the space like a commander's shout. Step back from the line. Immediately, the provocateur's eyes finally changed. For a moment, satisfaction glittered in them. He opened his mouth as if he wanted to say something else. But at that moment, two people finally moved in the crowd, the same man in the gray jacket and another guard. They grabbed the stranger's arms with cold, honed precision. That's enough. The game is over, Major, one of the guards said quietly, almost imperceptibly. The crowd did not understand. Some people started to applaud nervously, others continued to film. But Bryant just stared at the figure in the red hoodie being led out of the perimeter. He realized. It was no accident. One of the guards briefly confirmed. Internal inspection. New protocol. Thank you, Sergeant. You did the right thing. But Bryant was not relieved. Because for the first time in all his years of service, he realized that the real threat doesn't always come from the outside. It can look like a joke, like a test, and most importantly, not all solutions can be spelled out in a manual. He turned his head to the crowd. Someone was applauding him. Someone was filming his face, which showed no emotion. And only he knew. Today the line between the statue and the living soldier was blurred. There was only one question. Will all those on the other side of the line realize this in time?